My name is Chet here from Avion Technology, and this is our YouTube. It's not really a YouTube short because YouTube shorts are too short, and we try to do these little daily videos. I'll give you a little background of why we do it. So as we all know, after the pandemic, the world has turned digital, and you really have a lot of folks, common everyday folks, who who kind of feel left out in the whole digital uh, space. I mean, even folks like me who have now been in technology for the last 15, 17 years, often we feel kind of, especially and with a lot of new technologies like AI, crypto, we often feel like, we don't know what's going on. So for a lot of people who come from a non-tech background, technology is even more intimidating. So we try to do these little videos which kind of explain kind of big technology ideas into small kind of chewable bites. Here at Avion Technology, we really operate in three areas, and our videos are essentially in three areas. One is products, so product development. The second is agencies, working with agencies, digital agencies, and the third is working with small businesses in online marketing. So in the product space, we work with a lot of entrepreneurs who have a product idea, a digital product idea, and help them go from idea to market. And once they go to market from there, helping them to scale up and sometimes even up to an exit. So we've worked with a lot of companies in this, and within the product development space, each phase has its own nuances. So when you're working with someone who just has a product idea and he wants to develop an MVP, that requires a different kind of thinking. When you go from MVP to scaling up, that requires a different kind of thinking. And when you go from scaling up to exit, where you're probably being acquired by a larger company and you have to merge your platform with the larger company's processes and systems, that requires a different mindset. So today I'm going to actually talk about validating your product idea. So a lot of times we entrepreneurs will look at something, they'll identify something, and they'll say, hey, I have a product idea which is going to solve a problem, right? So the first starting point is that your product idea should solve a problem, right? If it doesn't solve any problem, then it's not going to get too many takers. So the first thing you got to see is whether your product idea solves some problem. Now, problems are generally divided into two types, right? You have generic problems, like solving global hunger is a very generic problem, and then you have specific problems, right? Like in a surgery room, right? In an operating room, you have so many different kinds of surgical instruments which are used, and sometimes those surgical instruments are not sanitized the way that they should be sanitized. So creating a checklist for surgeons and their assistants so that they sanitize all these surgical instruments properly, that kind of solves a very specific problem in a very specific field. So first thing you got to find out is whether what you're doing is solving a problem. The second thing what you want to do is find out whether it solves a very generic problem or whether it solves a very specific problem, because they both have different approaches, right? They both have different ways in which you can tackle them. The third thing is determine who your target market is. And this is actually something which comes a lot easier to someone who's actually worked in that industry. So let's say I've been a lawyer for the last 15, 20 years, and I know that if I create an app for which will help people file patents more easily with the USPTO, now that solves a very specific problem. And I also know that I have a very specific target market, which is to go after all the patent lawyers, all the patent attorneys within the US. So try to identify what your target market is. And when you're identifying your target market, It's always a little easier if you do have industry experience, because then you know who your target market is. On the other hand, if you don't know who your target market is, then like I always say, the best asset for a startup is to actually have a really good mentor, right? And someone who's worked, who's been there, someone who's, for whom this is not their first rodeo. That way, you can leverage a lot of that experience from your mentor. Um, now that you have a product idea, and you also have a target market in mind, uh, go ahead and do your MVP, right? Develop your minimum viable product, which by itself is a topic for another video. But go ahead, develop your MVP. Once you have developed your MVP, this is something that I cannot stress enough. When you're doing your MVP, what most entrepreneurs do is they feel that the most important part of a product launch is developing the MVP, and surprisingly, it is not. The most important part of a product launch is actually getting your beta audience, right? You will see a lot of entrepreneurs spend so much time and effort in trying to create the MVP, and when that MVP is ready, they really don't have energy left for actually going out and marketing it, because creating that MVP took all the energy, sucked out all the energy from their sucked out all the entrepreneurial spirit. So what you have to do is, when you're developing your MVP, parallelly, you have to create a list of at least 100. I have seen 100 is the magical number. So you have to create a list of at least 100 users, potential users, usually friends and family, who will be ready to try your product, right? So now then you have a beta audience in place. I cannot stress how important it is to have a beta audience, because these are the people who are going to give you honest feedback about your product. And once you release it to them, they will tell you, and you want people who will take a little bit more time than give you feedback like, oh, this is great or this sucks. You want people who will give you honest opinions, like, the first screen was not appealing, or the subsequent screens took too much time to load, things like that. Because what that does is, when you have a beta and you have the feedback that you've received from a beta, you can actually do something called as the pivot, Pivot. The pivot is the most important stage in product development, right? I have seen companies that are entrepreneurs who started developing product A, and then they got very different feedback from their beta audience, and they completely pivoted and actually ended up developing a product for something else. So be very flexible. Product teams and product owners especially need to be extremely flexible, right? You cannot go into the market saying this is my idea and this has to work. The market is the final decider. The market is the final arbiter. The market decides what works and what does not work. So the feedback that you get from the market, please incorporate it, and then you can come up with a version 2.0 of your MVP, and you will see that receives a better feedback. Now, this gets me to my last point. So like I said, I touched on a couple of points. First is, know, right? So make sure that you're solving a problem, right? That's the first thing. Second thing, see if it's a generic problem or a specific problem. I have seen products, especially these days when the world is saturated with digital products, I have seen problems which target a very specific niche, a very specific industry. Those are the products that succeed really fast. So see whether your product, is a generic product or a specific product. Third is identify your target market, right? That's before you start the MVP. Know who your market is. Once you've gone ahead and done your MVP, make sure you have a beta audience in place. Your beta audience will give you feedback, which you can then use to pivot your product idea and go in the direction where you can possibly take your product from 100 users to 1,000 users, right? And then once you're in that phase of scaling up, where your product has started getting some revenue, that's really the time when VCs start getting interested in what you have. And then you have the whole scale up phase, which is again a topic of its own video. The one thing that I would recommend, and this is something that all of you should have, is passion for what you're developing. Because you know we live in times when the whole journey, right, the whole entrepreneurial journey has been shown to be like a get rich quick scheme, where everyone talks about Evan Spiegel and Mark Zuckerberg, and everyone thinks that's normal. Where you have a product idea, you get a couple of friends, you code, you go out in the market, people love it, and you become a billionaire in 3 years. That is an outlier story. Usually, it does not happen. So what happens? Believe it or not, success in the internet age is also about hard work. It's also about persistence, and it's also actually about a lot of failures. And I have seen a lot of failures within products, right? Sometimes the failures are so big that you just have to cancel your whole plan and say this does not work at all. Or sometimes you have what are called mini failures or micro failures, where you take your product from 0 to 100. Maybe you introduce a new functionality and users hate it, and your active users come from 100 to 60, right? Then you have to reinvent the whole thing. You have to come up with something new, and that again takes you from 60 to, I don't know, 200. So you have these micro failures in product development, and you have to learn how to get past these micro failures, right? Product development is about a lot of persistence. Product development is about a lot of creativity. But more than anything, I think product development is being able to engage your audience and make them loyal, sticky customers. Remember, we live in an age when the audience is already starved of attention. You're competing with Instagram Reels, with TikTok, with Facebook, which was always there. So it's becoming more and more harder to get people to give your product its attention. So you're competing with all these big guys. So therefore, your product will only succeed when people can see your passion in the product. It's only when you will put in your 100% into something that you believe is going to make a difference in this world, that's when your product will succeed. So sum and substance, summary of this video is that there are a couple of steps that you need to do to make sure your product gets validated by the market, to test your product idea. There are things that you should do. But before you do all of these things, before you even take the first step, I think personally you have to ask yourself, how passionately do I believe in this idea? Right? Like a long-term marriage, product development has its ups and downs, and you're going to get till the end only if you have an insane commitment to stick through the bad times. So the first thing I would ask you as your technology mentor is, before you draw your business plan, before you create the screens of your app, first sit and ask yourselves, do I passionately believe in this product? And if the answer is yes, then go to the next steps. This is Chet here again from Avion Technology. We are a Chicagoland-based digital agency. We work with a lot of startups, a lot of entrepreneurs to take their product ideas and take it to market. We've had a lot of successes. If you feel you have an idea, go ahead and give us a call, and we would love to sit down and discuss with you, and would love the opportunity to be a part of your core technology team. Thank you so much, and have a great week.